Welcome everyone for our webinar today, presented by Disability in DC Metro and hosted by the Aiello Group. Today's topic is Equitable Access, Technology Bridging the Employment Gap for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. My name is Catherine McCary. I am an older white woman with dark hair and glasses and a grandmother of 3. And I'm pleased to serve as the CEO for Disability in DC Metro. We really appreciate Jess and Aiello hosting us again. She hosted our event last month, which was focused on technology for the deaf and hard of hearing community. If you did not attend that, it is on our website, which is di-dcmetro.org. And you will learn about Clear to Connect as well as Dome Audio. The DC Metro chapter of Disability In is a nonprofit business networking organization, and we address attitudes both in business as well as in communities on how to include people with disabilities in the workforce and the marketplace, and also as entrepreneurs. We're excited for our event today. Encourage everyone to participate, and let's just go on and listen from Jess. Jess, please. Take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm thrilled to be able to host this event. And like Catherine had mentioned, my name is Jessica Aiello. I'm going to take the opportunity now to explain about the words equitable access and what that means, and how we can bridge the gap. How we can bridge the gap for the deaf and hard of hearing communities. First, I want to give you a little bit about myself and my background. I am a CODA. I was raised in the Maryland, DC area. Both of my parents are deaf. My mom used to be an ASL teacher at Gallaudet University. And both of my parents founded a business back in the 1980s, and that business was called TCS Access Solutions. At that time, when they were beginning the business, there was no technology. There was no equitable access for their community. There was, hardly even any interpreters or caption services to be had. So it was an ongoing barrier that they had faced throughout their lives. And then for me as a CODA, seeing the challenges that my parents faced and, seeing what I had to face as being a CODA was difficult. So I went ahead and founded business Aiello Group. And our vision really is to be able to remove all barriers and create equitable access for the deaf, blind, blind and low vision communities. To begin, I want to start by explaining the difference between equity and equitable. You might have already seen this picture before, but if you can imagine, I'm going to explain the picture for you. It's 3 people standing at a fence, but they're all standing on different size podiums. One is very, very tall and over the fence. Another one is midway and not quite over the fence. And then another one is too short and can't see at all over the fence. So you've probably seen this picture before. How can we change it to make it more equitable? One solution would be to give the same size pillar to all of the individuals, so then they can all stand on the same size pillar or block and be able to see over the fence clearly. That is a fine option. But another option would be the person who is much taller than the others and can already see over the fence without a pillar wouldn't need one. The second person who is maybe average height and might just need, say, a 2-foot pillar or block to stand on to help them see over the fence. Now they can see over just as the tall person without the pillar. And then the shortest person will maybe need, say, a 4-foot pillar to stand up on so they can see the same as the other people who are taller. And then they can all see over the fence. So as that explains, not everybody has a one-size-fits-all need. You know, if we gave everyone the same size pillar, that doesn't create equality for them. But if we have equity, that is by giving each person the size pillar that they need to make sure that they can see the same as the others. It's very important that equitable access is given to everyone and that we are meeting people where they are at. What are their needs, their individual needs? It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. When we're able to accomplish that, we're able to level the playing field for everyone. Everyone will then have the ability to, the opportunity to play equally in the game. So as it relates to the deaf community, one deaf person might have different needs than another deaf person. One blind person will have different needs than another blind person. Just like in the hearing communities, they're all unique. Everyone has different needs. And today there's different technology that is available that will provide more empowerment to the individuals to find what suits them best. Throughout this presentation today, you'll be able to hear from several people about their experiences and talk about the technology that they've used, what they've seen work for them, maybe what's not worked for them. And there'll be opportunity to ask questions as well. We also will hear from VTC Secure, which is a technology company. It's really cool. We're going to have the chance for them to explain what they've been doing. And there will also be an opportunity to hear from NTID Center for Employment, individuals from there who both of these individuals work closely with the community and have a great impact on employment for people in the deaf and hard of hearing and low vision blind communities. It's really important for companies today to hire deaf and hard of hearing, blind, low vision individuals. And when they do that, it's important that they understand what their communication needs are. What does it mean to have an equitable environment? What does that look like? Employers need to develop a culture that really connects individuals and, focuses on what they can do and build that connection with everyone. The goal isn't to convince companies that, you need to do this because it's the right thing and you should hire these people. The goal is for them to understand that these individuals are skilled and capable to do the work that they need done. And therefore, they should hire them for those reasons. Again, I'm thrilled to be hosting this workshop today. And I'm excited to now turn it over to John. He is from the Center of Employment at NTID. And his colleague, Dawn. The two of them work together doing a great job. And I'm very excited to hear from them next. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Jess, for introducing me and Don. We're both delighted to be here to give you an overview of NTID. We are the National Technical Institute for the Deaf at Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. Before I start explaining what is RIT NTID, me, I was born deaf. I grew up all. I didn't know sign language until I went to college at RIT. That was my first exposure to learning sign language. So I will be signing and voicing for myself. As Jess mentioned during her introduction, that when you meet a deaf person, don't assume they're all the same. Each individual has a different way of communicating. For me, I'm comfortable using my voice and signing at the same time. Please understand that there are people who say, I'm deaf or I'm hard of hearing. Depending on the situation, if it's one-on-one with a hearing person, yes, it's fine to say I'm hard of hearing. But if I'm in a large group with people, I am deaf. It's very difficult for me to follow the conversation without any accommodation, like captioning or a sign language interpreter. Also, going to movie theater, if it's not captioned, I'm not going to be able to follow the dialogue in the movie. So I just want you to have a better understanding who I am. Okay. Now, at NTID, it was created in 1965. In 1968, that was the first year that we opened the door for the deaf hard of hearing student. That year, we had a total of 70 students were admitted. 53 years later, we have grown from 70 to over 1,000 deaf hard of hearing students. Now, you might be wondering why we have so many deaf hard of hearing students that come to Rochester, New York. Number one, the awareness level is high. We have faculty and staff that are very comfortable having deaf hard of hearing students in the classroom. Very comfortable. Number two, access services. We have more than 145 sign language interpreters. Understand that not all students know sign language. We have some students speak only. We have some students sign only. And then we have some accommodation of signing and voicing, to just give you an idea what the picture looked like. If we have students that know sign language, no worries. Why? We have more than 60 captioners where they provide captioning in the classroom. That's how our students are able to obtain quality education. And the third reason why we have students that come here is the cooperative education program, where depending on the major, we're required to do between 1 to 4 co-ops. I'm not going to explain in detail what is a co-op. I'm going to turn that over to Don soon. Our department, NTID, Center on Employment, we are a career center for the deaf hard of hearing student. We have a total of 9 people on the team. Each person is assigned to work with a major or majors. For example, Dawn, she's assigned to work with student in the business program at the AS level and BS level. We have other colleagues, they're assigned to work with science or engineering or business and so on. We also work with the employers to make them feel comfortable with the idea of hiring deaf hard of hearing students. Even though we've been doing this for 53 years, today employers are still not 100% sure if this will work if they hire staff auditors during the company. Why? First, they're concerned about communication in the workplace. Second, they're concerned about safety related to engineering, manufacturing, or a science environment. And third is the accommodation, not necessarily the cost, but they're not familiar with the various technology. That's why we're thrilled that Becky is here. She's going to share her experience related to the kind of technology she's using. Also, so think of us, we work in the middle, we work with the student, we work with the employers. Now, I want to turn over to Dawn. She's going to explain how we work with the student, how we work with the employers, and also explain what is a co-op. So I'm going to turn over to Dawn.
Hey everybody, I'm Dawn Lucas, and I am a woman. I'm a hearing woman. I have shoulder-length blonde hair. And thank you so much for attending today. I am, as I mentioned, I'm a hearing person. I am fluent in American Sign Language. It is a skill that I acquired during my time here at RIT NTID. And it is something that I feel has been of so much value in my life. I really appreciate the opportunity to have been able to join RIT 20 years ago, almost to the day. And it was pretty terrifying as a hearing individual to come into an environment where I would be interacting every day with deaf students and with deaf colleagues and with alumni. So the concept that I could share that experience and share what I learned with prospective employers who are probably sharing some of that fear I experienced at my first concept of this type of daily interaction. It's just been what a great way to, come to work every day and be able to do this. So a webinar like today, even a greater experience to be able to connect with more prospective employers and share information. So thank you for joining us. And thank you, Jess and Catherine, for having us from the NTID Center on Employment. I am the Associate Director here. So I support John and our team. There's 7 additional staff members, as John mentioned, and we all play a role. And we're all very committed to our goal of enhancing employment opportunities for deaf and hard of hearing individuals all over the country. We have students from pretty much every state. And so, a lot of times people will assume that, we work with just local employers, and we don't. We work with employers all over the country and beyond. And, one of the things I enjoy most about what I do is the interactions with students that for many of them, some have not had a job, maybe not even a part-time job. So when they come to us and they've selected their academic programs, a big part of their curriculum, other than the technical aspect, is career readiness. And when we think of career readiness, we think, how do we write a resume? How do we write a cover letter? How do we do some company research? All those basics. But we dig a little deeper with our students and our graduates. We want to make sure that they have those career readiness skills that when they go on those job interviews, when they're interacting with employers, they're demonstrating themselves as competent self-advocates. Because it's very different for someone who's deaf than it is for someone who's hearing when they're looking for a job. And many times, one of the first topics that comes up is disclosure. In the employment world, many of you joining us today, we know where your motivations are at. You want to know perhaps that a job candidate is an individual with a disability. You want to be able to source that. You value that diversity. You value that varied perspectives. But that's not always the case, is it? Unfortunately, individuals with disabilities, are not putting down on their resume that they have have a disability. And of course, as HR professionals, we're not asking that question either because of concerns of discrimination. So our role in helping students make these connections is teaching them how to make people comfortable with these interactions, how not to be nervous, how not to fear they're going to ask a question that's inappropriate. And that is just such a great way to help people make these connections. And we're always teaching our students, you're the experts, you're the deaf or hard of hearing individual. Your whole life, you have experience interacting with hearing people, and you know how to make it happen. You know how to make them comfortable. You may be interacting with someone who's hearing from a company and they've never met a deaf person before. And it can be a scary prospect because we want to do the right thing. We want to say the right thing. So that's where a lot of our focus is. Our students who come to RIT are required, as John mentioned, they have to work. They have to work while they're here. Their major or their degree requires they work one or more work experience, an internship. So from the minute they walk in the door, we're working with them on making sure they have the skills to seek employment, gain employment, and become upwardly mobile throughout their careers. So how we do that is through curriculum in each of our programs that we offer and through one-on-one advising. John mentioned I work with College of Business students here at RIT and the Business Studies Department at NTID. So you talk about ranges. I'm working with students who are coming to college in an associate degree program, and they're going to be graduating and they're going to be looking right away for employment. And then I'm also working with students who will go on to pursue bachelor degrees and go on to pursue even graduate school. And in addition to making sure those students and alumni are career ready, I'm also spending a lot of time interacting with the employer partners that we have and developing new relationships, and hope to be able to connect with many of you attending today after our session. We hope you will reach out. And we develop those relationships. And a good start for us is always to encourage companies to hire our students as interns. We always like to say it's a try before you buy concept to see, does that particular individual fit your company culture? Do they have the technical skills for the job? And our co-op experiences are typically during the summer or maybe a fall or spring semester. So it's a great opportunity to bring our students in and see what they can do. So we hope to connect with you. And that, in a nutshell is what we do. We build bridges. We're making sure our students are prepared as self-advocates. We're making sure our employers are educated and comfortable with the concept of bringing on board deaf and hard of hearing employees. And we want to make sure they know where the tools and resources are that will help them. And that's us. We're the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. We're federally funded, and we're here for you. We're here to be a resource. So I hope we can connect following the session. And Jess, I know, is kind of walking us through and doing introductions. And some of the next individuals I know she's going to be introducing. We were very fortunate today that one of our great employer partners, one of our top employer partners, Fidelity Investments, is able to join us. And then, of course, we could not show up here without one of our recent grads who's had a lot of experience with internships at various employer partners of ours, including Fidelity, and who also recently participated in the Disability In Conference last year as a Next Gen leader, and that's Cole Innes. So he's joining us today too. So we're here just to brag and show our stuff and hopefully share some information.
Great. Thank you so much, John and Dawn, for your words. It's just been great to learn more about the work that you all do, and thank you for sharing that with us. Now we're going to go ahead and begin a roundtable discussion. We're going to add 3 more people, and we'll have the opportunity to hear from them and their experiences. First, I want to introduce Becky Copeland. Becky is the CEO of VTC Secure. And then again, the recent grad from NTID's program, Cole Innes. And he works with Accenture. And then I would also like to introduce Deandra Brown, who is from Fidelity Investments. So thank you all for joining today for this roundtable discussion. If you can all go ahead and click unmute on the screen so you're open to talk, that would be great. So first, I want to open the discussion with hearing from Cole. Cole, what has been your experience so far? From when you first became involved with the Center from Employment at NTID and began working with them, and then through graduation and on your job search, can you talk about what the process was like for you?
Yeah, sure. So I first came to the NCE when it's actually where I got my first co-op, which I worked with Fidelity Investments back in 2019 during the summer. But I've been kind of like actively been trying to stay connected with them throughout college and a little bit after graduation. So the reason why I first came to NCE was because I was kind of struggling trying to find a co-op that was what I was interested in, that was related to my specific field and major, which is product design and user experience related to accessibility and inclusive design. So the reason why I came to NCE was because I personally didn't find the RIT Career Center to be the best. They didn't really understand and like what I was looking for, because I found out that NCE has more people who are related to who are trying to find people who have accessibility interests and just different backgrounds. And I feel like the RIT Career Center wasn't like entirely the best at that, whereas NCE provided more needs towards that. But my process for it. So I worked with Erica a lot, who was my career advisor from the NCE. I feel like, as what Dawn was saying earlier, where they focus on getting comfortable in communicating, Erica kind of really pushed that idea and have kind of like run me through ways to communicate and ways to tell my story, or ways to form my interview during the actual interviews with the company. And I personally found that's how I got my first interview with Fidelity Investments, who I worked with Pernay Malik. He was also hard of hearing. So it was also like a very interesting experience comparing like from hard of hearing manager to a hearing manager, which is who I have now at Accenture. But throughout, I've been kind of like keeping connections with the NCE and my career. Obviously, But my second internship was through NCE, who was also looking for people who have a background in accessibility and design, and as well as someone who has a different background than just a hearing person. So yeah, and then same thing happened for the Accenture for Disability In. They were looking for someone who wasn't a hearing person, so they kind of like wanted someone with a different background and just kind of brought me into the team because I have an interest in accessibility as well. So I hope that answers the question. Or
Yes, it does. Thank you. So for the people here today, people who are watching you and reading the captions or listening to you talk, you speak for yourself. You voice for yourself, and you also consider yourself to be deaf, or do you prefer the term hard of hearing? Which do you identify as?
So it's kind of like what John Macco was saying earlier, it's situational. So when I'm around like more of like entirely a deaf group, I feel like I'm more hard of hearing in a deaf group because I grew up speaking and then I learned a little bit of sign in high school, and then I started signing way more in college and then until graduation as well. So but like if I'm in a group of hearing people or at a concert per se or a bar or somewhere like where there's actual like group people who don't sign, I consider myself deaf because I will need like some form of clarity and some form of accessibility or access to something. So, but I consider myself hard of hearing most of the time.
Thank you. So do you think that employers sometimes have misunderstandings between what your needs may be? Because, maybe compared with another employee who is deaf and needs to have sign language interpreters, and then they have you who speaks for themselves. Do you think there's misunderstandings? And can you speak more on that?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot of misunderstanding. So sometimes I feel like sometimes they don't really understand that like it's not just I only need captioning. Sometimes I also read lips to understand what they say. So sometimes like during like let's say discussions with my team or discussions with some employers of someone else outside my team, I like to read lips more so than actually just straight captioning, but captioning helps for when they speak really fast. But sometimes I feel like they don't really get that I read lips through camera. They just think it's mostly captioning. Yeah, I feel like there is a very big misunderstanding on like the range of ways to accommodate someone who's deaf.
Yes, that's a very good point, that there is many different ways to provide accommodations and access to people in the work environment. Deandra, what would you say your experience is at Fidelity, and what is their HR process? How do you make sure that accommodations are provided that meet the needs of your employees?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Rachel. So here at Fidelity, we really try to be an inclusive environment for any associate, and recognizing that that we all come with various abilities. When we have associates that are hard of hearing or deaf and they need accommodations, we have a very defined process, both internally through our employee relations group, and then also through our accessibility office. We have lots of tools that are available where the associates can kind of self-select what they need in order to do their day-to-day jobs, or even if they're just coming in for an interview. There's a process in place where, on every one of our job postings, we are sharing, that Fidelity will reasonably accommodate any candidate here, and we provide the information that they need and the phone numbers that they can call to request accommodate if they needed someone to sign or if they needed a hearing device or other tool. We would definitely accommodate them even at that point, prior to them being hired. Another thing that we do just internally is really what got me here today, is, we actually promote an environment of inclusion through programmatic hiring. The program that Cole came through at the time was called the Belong program. It really focused on associates that have various disabilities. It started as an autism program, and through his former manager, Perrine, who was an alum of RIT, he reached out and he partnered with this group to bring associates that are deaf or hard of hearing. And we have continued that. The now Enable Fellowship program is in place to bring associates in an environment that is inclusive and that helps them to come in and to leverage and give them the tools and resources that they need to be successful within Fidelity. So it's very structured. We want to be inclusive in that we don't want to treat associates that may be deaf or hard of hearing or have other disabilities any different than we would any other associate, but we do want to ensure that they have the ability to do the job that we're bringing them to perform.
Yes, thank you for that. So I'm wondering, I know that there are many employees there many employers sometimes are a little bit intimidated to hire a person who is deaf or has a disability. What sort of tip could you give them? What could you share with the group here for other companies to learn from that will help them to, feel less fear about working and hiring employees with disabilities, specifically, deaf and hard of hearing and vision disabilities?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I will not say that it doesn't come with its challenges for our managers. One of the things that we do through the Enable Fellowship program, it's really focused on equipping managers with the tools and the resources that they need in order to ensure that they're able to not only accommodate their associate, but also that they're comfortable building those working relationships. A lot of times in this program, and I get a lot of questions from managers. Is it okay for me to say this? Is it okay for me to ask that? So the one thing and this is something that I actually got from legal, it's okay. We should be treating our associates equal across the board, even recognizing that they may have a disability. But the one thing I think it's important for us to always do is to have a transparent and open conversation with our associates and allow them to tell us what they need and not make any assumptions. I may know that an associate came from NTID because I hired them or I brought them into my program, but I shouldn't assume that I need to make sure I have an interpreter on the call. I may want to have that conversation, and, say, is there anything you need that would, help you to do, to perform your job or to make you more comfortable, and just not always go in with assumptions. And I think that's where a lot of employers sometimes feel pressured because they're not necessarily sure how to react or how to intake an associate that may be deaf or hard of hearing or sight impaired or blind.
Yes. So what kind of programs within Fidelity do you have that provide employees the ability to be more inclusive with the employees with disabilities? How do you teach them about inclusivity?
One of the ways we do that is partnering with groups like NTID. We use our relationships with these partners. I have had NTID to come in. They have provided us resources for training our managers. And we also have other partners that share, because we do, for the program, that the Enable Fellowship program, we do have associates that are on the autism spectrum. We do have associates that are blind or are deaf or hard of hearing. So we work with various partners. And that has been an effective way to get resources, to get trainings, and really just try to equip our managers. Another thing that we do is we partner. So all of this program partners with our internal ERG, the Enable Fellowship, the Enable ERG, which is our ERG that focuses and really has a passion for associates that have disabilities. And part of the program model is to get mentorship through that ERG. We also use that ERG, those members, to even interview, to give the associates exposure to that group right at the beginning, even before they come and they join Fidelity. So we try to basically layer in resources and a support system for every associate that comes in through these programs. Internally at Fidelity, for people that are not coming through a program, but that are maybe full-time hires, there are internal resources. As I mentioned before, we have technological resources. We have our Office of Accessibility. We have our D&I office. So there are lots of different ways that associates can tap into all of the tools and resources that are available to them as they join Fidelity.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And as you mentioned technology, I would love to hear from Becky. And if you could explain the platforms that you have and what's been your experience working with other employers and employees using this technology, and how you've seen the use of technology and the various platforms really empower the deaf and hard of hearing individuals in the workplace. If you could also speak to that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. And it's a pleasure to be here. Like she says, my name is Becky. I am the CEO of VTC Secure. I've been signing most of my life since I was about 10 or 12. I've started out teaching people how to use TTYs way back in the day, caption phones. I worked for the Deaf Service Center. I was a nationally certified interpreter for a long time. So I've kind of seen the spectrum. I did a lot of work in the middle part of my career, actually helping deaf and hard of hearing do resumes, interview questions, getting them to work with VR, doing job placements here in Florida. So it's really great to be part of this because this is kind of where I came from. So the really cool thing is, I'm a nerd, it's technology, and what has happened in the last 20, 25 years, like I said, from the TTY to now we have this VRS service that allow people to make phone calls and communicate all over the world. It's fascinating to see all the changes, in the last 20, 25 years. And it's really great to be a part of that. So we build technology for people with disabilities. We focus primarily on the deaf, that's where most of me and my group has come from. We've come from the VRS or VRI world. So we do have a platform. It does video, voice, and real-time text. And we built that primarily actually for creating jobs for deaf people by setting it up to do deaf-to-deaf call centers. So let's say you need to call your cable provider or your phone provider. If you're deaf and you sign, you call through VRS, get an interpreter, and you have an interpreted phone call between you and the customer service agent. And what we really wanted to see happen with the technology out there was, why don't these call centers hire deaf people to be the deaf customer service reps? And that way, a deaf person who needs to call their insurance company or their phone or their provider, instead of calling through an interpreter, they can call a deaf person who works for the company, who is now you can go ASL to ASL and not have to have that interpreter in the middle. It's better customer service. It's more loyalty between the deaf community. It's getting jobs out there and really putting that in the forefront. So that was actually the first thing that we really started about 6-7 years ago. Then in working with that, because we're technology people, we listened to what people needed. And people needed a better way to do VRI. So we incorporated the platform not only in the US, but all over the world. We now provide VRI and VRS for the deaf. And right now, I think 10 countries all over the world. With that, people started asking about transcription and translation. So we started working on ideas on how we can transcribe an agent so a deaf person can see what the agent is saying to make sure they're voicing for them right. Or they want to be involved in a meeting and they want to have the interpreter captioned. So we started working with all these new, APIs for translation and transcription, and we're able to add that for agents, deaf agents. We also created something called the ILA. And what it basically does is it lets someone who's hard of hearing use it for transcription. So the hearing person speaks and everything they say shows up to the hard of hearing person. We can add a VRI interpreter right on there. Because again, this is one of the things we're talking about is don't assume that every deaf person can read English or every hard of hearing person can read English well. Sometimes they really need to have an interpreter. So we added interpreter capabilities to be able to have an on-demand interpreter onto that. Last year, when COVID started, people who would probably not identify themselves as hard of hearing, but can no longer read lips when you're wearing a mask. And we saw hundreds of thousands of people going to COVID testing sites, vaccine sites, the doctor, who, when both people are wearing a mask, they can't understand. They don't sign. They don't want to write back and forth. So we're able to use this as an opportunity to, as people came with us with problems, we kept adding technology that would allow you to overcome some of those issues. And like I said, last year was one of those things that where it popped up where, people weren't being able to communicate with a mask. How are we going to do this? We can't understand each other. And being able to say, hey, we have a piece of technology. I can add that feature to it, something that's already out there to allow people to be able to accommodate. Lastly, part of that, and this is actually how I know the folks at NTID, is people were really, people were remote. You couldn't do indoor career fairs anymore. Deaf people were not getting interviewed because they couldn't do a phone interview per se because the companies maybe didn't understand how VRS worked. We used our platform to partner with several disability groups to provide fully accessible career fairs. We can provide interpreters for the deaf. We can do caption for the hard of hearing. We can make changes and voiceover for those that are blind. It works with braille displays so that you can even talk to a recruiter using a display if you're deaf blind. So we used our technology that we had all along, but we never really thought about career fairs because they were in person. You had interpreters at the fairs. Everything seemed to work. And then because of necessity last year, all of a sudden, we're like, we need a way that companies can hire and we can get people with disabilities back to work where they can't, necessarily show up somewhere. So we started these live online career fairs that act just like you walk in and are at a booth, but you're doing everything remotely. So like I said, it's really cool to see the technology because what we do is we go out there, we listen, what do people need and how are things changing? And then we go back and say, okay, how can we build this into our technology so that we can provide things that maybe no one thought of before?
That's great.
Do you work directly with employers, or what exactly is the process there to, get the technology to the employees?
So sometimes we do work directly with the employers, both for deaf-to-deaf call centers or career fairs. They come to us, they want to hire the deaf people, they want to train the deaf people, and they want to hold their own fairs. And we just kind of provide the technology and then partner them up with some of our partners if they need extra help. But then we work with Ability, AAAED, CSD, NTID, Gallaudet. So if they want to do the hiring and provide the call center, or they want to work directly with the company on the training and doing the career fair, we actually partner with a lot of companies as well so that they can provide the front end and we can provide the technology, take their feedback, and then, you know, add whatever features are needed. So we kind of do it both ways.
That's great. Dawn, I would love to better understand your relationship. So when you are looking for employers to partner with the Center for Employment at NTID, what kind of resources are you giving them? How are you helping the employers understand, you know, what the needs may be? How do you, you know, make sure there is a position available for a deaf or hard of hearing or blind employee? And just talk more about your program and what you provide to the employers.
Sure. For the interpreters, I'm right here. Everybody's got to find each other on this screen today. So thanks. That's a great question. And I know the information that Cole and Deandra and Becky shared all kind of led into that. It is such a big part of what we do when we begin interacting with any employer. And I can use Fidelity as obviously a good example, as Deandra's here today, with the program that they have. That particular connection really originated a few years ago, several years ago, because of one of our alums. I mean, our alumni leave RIT, NTID, and they have a strong commitment because many times they've worked with our office. They've made, you know, in Cole's situation, he made connections with 3, now 4 great employers in his history of co-op and permanent full-time work. And they want to kind of turn around and give a hand up to the next ones in line. And, you know, Cole's being here today, participating in this, sharing information in the hopes that, you know, NTID will connect with even more employer relationships is testament to that. And Deandra being here to speak about our experience working together. And when I called Deandra first when I reached out about who we might invite today. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason she was my first call, and a reason I was really glad that she accepted and said yes, is that, you know, we work with a variety of employers. And in the case with Fidelity, there's this particular program that they have that really is a good start. And it started with an ERG group, as she referred to, and one of our alums involved in that ERG group with a motivation, and grew into what is currently the Enable Fellowship Program, which, by the way, this past summer, we had 5 interns at the Fidelity Enable program, and 2 have just been recently hired for fall. So we're on this roll. And that doesn't happen without appropriate support and resources. And one thing that's great about Deandra and her team there is when they have a question, they reach out. And hopefully we've made them comfortable. You know, we want to let them know there's no such thing as a stupid question, that we are here to respond to anything. And we do it with providing as much information as we can and as much resources. I would not be able to, of course, let this session end without identifying one of the key resources that we do have. And that is our online course for working together deaf and hearing people. This is something of value because it can be used not only at the HR recruitment level, but it is intended to be a corporate-wide for supervisors, department managers, co-workers, anybody in an organization who wants to increase their awareness, increase their comfort level, working every day with deaf and hard of hearing individuals. It addresses the diversity within that group. Our graduate Cole is here today. He communicates verbally. And so his accommodation needs are very different than some of our other students who communicate maybe primarily in ASL. So knowing when to ask those accommodations questions. We have so many motivated employers that before they've hired a student or before they've even posted a job, they want to know, what accommodations do I need in place? And it's like, well, that's impossible to know until you've identified the role and the responsibilities and identified the individual that's going to be fulfilling them. And then we look, okay, what accommodations are needed in that particular relationship and go forward. I will put the link to the online Working Together course in the chat. This course was developed from proceeds of a grant from the National Science Foundation. We were extremely fortunate, and we partnered with Deaf Tech, which is an organization here on campus that received this grant funding to put this online course together as part of their initiatives to improve employment opportunities for deaf and hard of hearing people around the country. So I will drop that in the chat. It is free. There's lots of questions all the time about what's the cost. I have X number of employees I want to put through this training. It is absolutely free. The only thing that we ask is that as an employer, you register to use it. And the reason we do that is so we're able to send information back to NSF for their ROI information to know how many employers and employees this information is getting out to. We like to track those results. So I'll put that in for you. And it's one of the tools we use as we collaborate with employers.
I just want to add, when we're working with the employers, when it's new, we always tell them, you want to start small. Sometimes we have an employer, they're so excited, they want to hire many. From our experience, you want to start small and also identify the right manager who is willing to give people with disability, including deaf a chance. Because you don't want an employer to force a manager, you will hire this person. That is not a win-win situation. So we always tell them, start small. And then when they have a positive experience, before you know it, the word gets out. Other departments want to do the same thing. And that's how we're able to grow and prosper. And that's something I just wanted to share.
Yes, that is a great tip. Thank you, John, for adding that. And thank you, Dawn, for all the information you just shared.
I'm typing away in the chat.
So that tip that John shared is great for employers. What else could you say for students or graduates who are deaf, hard of hearing, or blind, who are in the job search and looking for jobs, and what they should, do you have a tip for them as they go and join a company?
Yes, I
John.
can.
Or John, if you'd like to speak to that. Yeah.
I shared that.
Either
chat.
of you, yes.
Yeah. Well, I've had the luxury of working with such a varied group of students, and it's been, one of the best parts of my job. Though I love working with employers too. With the students, the biggest thing that we can do for them is to teach them how to be self-advocates. I mean, if we only accomplish that, that is the most important thing, because, they can leave here with a perfect resume. They can leave here with, just the best looking cover letter, and they can even have some, interviewing skills and whatnot. But we want them, it's one thing to get a job, and it's another thing to be able to really have that self-reliance, that self-accountability for their own success. And if they can be comfortable in what their skills are, they have to be knowledgeable about the technology. Becky today explained a lot about the technology they work with that they've developed, and it was very diverse. I mean, they have technology that assists individuals who use primarily ASL. They have technology that assists individuals who are hard of hearing but oral. I mean, we have students come into our office who are hard of hearing. They voice for themselves, much like Cole. And I'm introducing them to the concept of a captioned telephone. And it's the first time they're hearing of it. And when they know it exists, they're like, oh my gosh, where has this been? And that actually now, I mean, there's even more updated technology. So that self-accountability to know that technology is out there, know it's changing daily or by the minute, sometimes it seems, and to know what it is, know how to use it. We have a technology room right in our area here in the Center on Employment. So students can come in and say, wow, I've never used a video relay before. Here you go, try it out. I've never used a captioned telephone. Here you go, try it out. And we're here to support their learning in that. So they're not alone trying to figure it out. And then what happens is they then become familiar with it, that they can go into an interview, go into a new workplace as an intern, and immediately make the people around them comfortable because they're knowledgeable about what tools are available and can show people how to use it. They can show how they pick up their cell phone and can use Microsoft Translator if someone comes up to them and needs to ask a question and maybe that writing back and forth seems cumbersome. So that alone is the one thing we focus on, in addition to all that normal Career Center stuff you expect. You know, have a good resume, have a good cover letter, just being that self-advocate.
Jess?
Yes, that is great. And I know that, having the technology and the options available to employees is a great thing, that it's available to them. At times companies sometimes don't even know what technology is available to them, what types of services they can get. How do you go about getting an ASL interpreter? What does a deaf interpreter mean? What does a hearing interpreter mean? Sometimes those get confused. Or what is CART? And, what is a reader? And just all the different services that, can be offered, and the different resources that are available to make sure that, so having that available for people is great. Catherine, would you be able to, did you want to add something?
Yes, this is Catherine McCary. And yes, I wanted to, first of all, thank this conversation. It's just fabulous. Becky, I was one of those people that didn't realize I was hard of hearing until I was wearing a mask. So I can so identify and will now have an apparent disability to add on to my non-apparent disability. But what I wanted to add to what I've been hearing is self-advocacy, because I know that it's so important for all students, but certainly students with disabilities and graduates. And at the DC Metro chapter a few years ago, we partnered with Broad Futures, which is an internship program for college students with disabilities. And we brought in employers and recent graduates from Gallaudet and those who are working. And I had a huge dialogue about the lack of knowledge in that group. Just as you mentioned, sometimes the students at RIT don't know what a video relay is. And it was just the most amazing conversation. But real quickly to tell you that transformed itself into 2 learning modules. And I will get the link out and posted. If it's not on our website, it will be by the end of the day. But it's striving and thriving. And striving is, and it's written from an employer's perspective, but supporting that student. And it works for, certainly is appropriate for any student, but self-advocacy is one of those things. So what do you do when you're striving, still looking for that first opportunity? And then now that you've got that first opportunity, what can you do to thrive? And so I'm being sure that everybody gets that link. But this has been something that we've talked about for a long time. And it's not a conversation that's going to go away. We have to keep doing this. And I really appreciate all of your comments. And Jess, of course, as you know well, it's so important to have a dialogue and not just panel speaking. Just talk to each other and learn from each other.
Yes, Cole, would you like to add something?
Yeah. So it's, it's not directly related to me, but it's something I've noticed from talking with a lot of other deaf and hard of hearing interviewees. So I noticed that this, so I was having a discussion with a few other people about like how um they run through interviews, because like the way I go about it is like I inform them that I want like captioning, I need like a camera on just to read because it make it easier. So but I've had discussions with other people where they don't really directly inform them. They kind of just like surprise them on the interview saying like they prefer text to word and all sorts of stuff. So they make the, so I feel like oftentimes like where from what I understand is like they tend to approach the interview like that because they don't know they could request these things and they could do these things to do that. So from my perspective, I feel like um it, to make the interview process easier would be is to like kind of like make sure that the person you're interviewing who is hard of hearing or deaf is to say like, do you need these specific accommodations? Being more upfront about it is kind of like designing the experience for them to make the interview process a lot easier for them. And I'm not sure why exactly the interviewees did that, because it doesn't make sense to me, but I definitely can understand why they were having issues with it. Because they say like other companies would turn them down. They feel like other companies turn them down for because of the hard of hearing, they can't provide access and stuff like that.
Yes, and I think that there is a fear of being able to speak up and say I need something and put in the request. I think there's is some fear in that people have. So I've seen this story often where people get turned down for a job for various reasons. Sometimes because the company doesn't want to provide sound interpreters. Yes, that could be a reason, or they don't want to provide the accommodation, but sometimes it can be related to the skill as well. Like I said, it can be for various reasons, but like you said, Cole, if people are more willing and able and motivated to kind of put in that fight and make sure they're asking and saying, this is what I need, and just being more upfront, the better. And I also think from an employer perspective, the employers can be just more proactive. What we've seen is, them being just more complacent and waiting for a request to come in to see what the person's needs are. And I'm hopeful that we're going to begin to see more and more companies being more open and more proactive and, going and asking right away, is there any accommodations we can provide? Is there anything we can do for you? Instead of, waiting for the person to request that for an interview. Mm-hmm. And I think by having, this type of discussion, it will, open up the pathways for that to happen, and it will make employers more willing to have that open environment. John, would you like to say something?
Cole, so happy you brought this up. Why? We did research on our soon-to-want co-op for 3 years total. We learned that when our students go on a co-op for the first time, believe it or not, close to 80% didn't ask for accommodation. And we asked why. Some students know they didn't know they could ask. Some didn't want to feel different. They didn't want the attention. Also, for some students, it's their first time working in the engineering world or computing world or working for a high-tech company. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what accommodation they need, especially during the interview process or when they were hired. But interesting, again, from the research, when our students do their co-op for the second or third time, they learn, they become an advocate. They know what they need and don't need. It takes time for our students to learn. So I understand what you're saying. During the interview, some never request accommodation. Some did. That's also related to being comfortable. They're concerned about their image, they're self-conscious. They don't want to feel different. That takes time for any deaf hard of hearing individual. Over time, they evolve. I've seen that.
Yeah, and Deandra, did you have something you wanted to add?
Needs sound.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Absolutely. And, I'm listening to the conversation and I hear and I have experienced exactly what both Cole and John, both scenarios that they're referencing, because a lot of times candidates, when they're applying for a role, sometimes they already have what they need, right? They're using their own technology, their own laptops, personal devices. And then when they get to the job, it's a little bit different. So I think part of it is one of the things that, we really try to do is, as I mentioned before, is just really equipping managers with the knowledge and basically helping them to be able to communicate or making them comfortable enough to make the associate comfortable and saying, this is what I need in order to do my job, so, I think it's definitely a two-way street. And I was actually in the chat and I saw, Catherine had put a question in there as to just kind of what we do internally to inform our managers or educate our managers. We have an entire site dedicated to inclusion. We have inclusive hiring practices where I'm in HR, all of HR, every interviewer, every talent acquisition program manager, every recruiter has to go through this training and really understand, how to be inclusive across the board, regardless of, what disabilities a candidate may have, because we all have our own personal biases and, we have to learn how to recognize those and, don't act on them. And that could be, with people that I might have someone in my family who's deaf, so I have a sensitivity, for people that are deaf or hard of hearing. So I might be inclined to say, you know what, I just want to give this person a chance. But we also have to consider the other side, right? Is this person the right candidate to do the actual job? So it works from several different perspectives. I think, from the associate perspective, somebody like Cole, coming in, if it's your first time, of course, there might be some apprehension, but from Fidelity's perspective, our managers have to be equipped and be able to kind of have those conversations in an open manner and not make the associate feel like, they're going to be looked at as different. We just want to make sure that you have the things that you need. So sometimes it's the way that we communicate and just being, certain about the words that we use or the words that we sign to associates that may be hard of hearing.
Thank you. That's great. Becky, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add exactly what you said. It's been interesting the last year and a half doing the career fairs, because you have a bunch of HR agents who are getting hundreds of interviews during that day. Some have disabilities, some don't, and the variety of disabilities are so different. But since they don't know it coming in, the feedback has actually been that it was easier for them because they didn't have any false expectations. Or if a deaf person showed up on their screen, so did an interpreter. They didn't have to request an interpreter. They didn't have to do anything else, but, oh, okay, we're just going to do this interview. And it was interesting because I expected the feedback to be, it was awkward and I didn't know how to use the interpreter and I didn't know what the person needed. But the fact that they just kind of didn't know, a lot of them said it made it easier for them. If the interpreter showed up, okay, well, I used an interpreter. If they started captioning, oh, I know that they're hard of hearing and that they're transcribing me. And it almost was the opposite because they didn't have that worry or expectation. They actually, the HR managers did so much better because they didn't have that fear going into it.
Dawn?
Yeah, what Becky just spoke to, and Deandra spoke to, and Cole spoke to, and back to your question about employers being proactive. I mean, our audience today is primarily employers. And I'm sitting here thinking, we talked a lot about the job applicants being self-advocates. And what can employers do to be proactive? Cole brought up about fellow job seekers he was aware of would go into interviews and surprise, I'm deaf, and let's figure this out now. And, why would they do that kind of thing? And a lot of times it's that disclosure concern, disclosing the disability ahead of the interview and not wanting to do that. Nothing says I'm deaf or I have a disability like requesting a sign language interpreter for an interview. I mean, once you do that, you've disclosed. So that's a big part of it, I think. But what happens then is what an employer can do is they can ask that question when it's time to set up the interview. And again, it's sticky because you get into legalities of are we forcing people to disclose if we ask them a question about what they might need for the interview. So, that's both a question and a suggestion, I guess, at the same time. But can we do that? Can we ask those questions about, even if we don't use the word accommodation, sometimes that word makes everybody go, ah, if we just say, what can we do so you can be the most effective in your interview? And go with it from there and see how that works. That would be a very proactive thing I would think employers could do.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So for everyone who is on the webinar right now, Dawn has added links to the chat. And so you can go and see there on the screen as well that there are different resources that are available for everyone. And then lastly, before we wrap up, I just wanted to also share a little bit about, how many of you have seen, you've seen me sign today. And I had mentioned early on that I was a CODA. I am a CODA. And then like Cole has mentioned and Dawn has mentioned and Becky has mentioned and, everybody signs different, has different preferences. What John does is different from what Cole does and everybody just does what they prefer. And I am a hearing person and I can use my voice, but I prefer to sign when I am speaking with deaf people in the audience. I prefer to use sign language. And I think that goes back to the concept of the not one size fits all. We need to make sure that we're committed to meeting people where they are. That's really important to have that mindset in the workplace. I want to thank everyone again for being involved in our roundtable discussion today. And I want to thank NTID. I want to thank Cole, Fidelity, and VTC Secure for your time today. And please do contact us if you have any follow-up questions. We're always available. And I want to thank Catherine and DC Disability In for the DC metro area for hosting us today and letting us share on this topic and the previous webinar that we had as well. There's not just one. So thank you again. And I'm going to now turn it back over to you, Catherine.
Great. Thank you, Jess. I appreciate that, all the leadership that you've shown in this dialogue and the different perspectives have been exactly what we do at the DC Metro organization, is listening to other voices and learning from each other. I would ask, or I'd add, it's been 20 years since I sat in an HR job, but I did a lot of hiring and recruiting in my time. And back at that point, we were focused on including people with disabilities. It was a priority for us. I was at SunTrust Bank. The question that we asked every applicant is exactly the way it was expressed. What can we do to make your interview most successful for you so that you can shine? Is there anything you need? I agree the word accommodation is not necessary, except it is when it is, as a legal accommodation. But it's very important, I think, to be understanding that everyone comes to the workplace with their own individual skills and abilities. And I have heard so many great things about Fidelity over the years and met people there at the Disability In Conference. I'm thrilled to have gotten to know Cole and Becky and to get reunited with my friends at NTID. I appreciate all of that. We are working on the next webinar, which will be focusing on accessibility through our board member and partner, Essential Accessibility. And just to remind you, if you missed the first part 1 of Technology for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Community, in which we had President Cardano from Gallaudet offer some welcoming remarks, it is on our website. And this one will be as well. And all the webinars that we have done are on the website, which is up at the top of this page, di-dcmetro.org. And just 100,000 thank yous for hosting, bringing this conversation out. And thank you all for attending. If you have questions, there's some people that you can actually reach out to and ask questions. You're welcome to email me if you need contact information to that. Be sure to sign up for our DC Metro newsletter that comes out every month. And you can do that right on the website. So thank you all again. And I will say thank you and happy August. Everyone have a wonderful Labor Day weekend and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.